What's going on, guys, and welcome to my updated Magicka Sorcerer build for the Morrowind expansion. Now, if you watched my last one pre-Morrowind, most of the stuff is the same, except I changed a few skills. The champion points are a little bit different, and yeah, I'll show you some new gear and some replacements, but right now what I'm using is actually what I've been using for trials. And before I start, I just want to say that everything I use right now, I have completed the Maw of Lorcage trial on veteran with it, and yesterday I actually got my first live clear of the Halls of Fabrication raid, and yeah, so this works. You can do it. I don't know if it's 100% best, but it works for me. So yeah, let's start off with the attributes, and then we'll show you the skills, champion points, and all that stuff. So what I have here is 59 magic and 5 health. Now, the 5 health isn't necessary, but I kind of just like having a safety room, especially when I'm doing a trial with new people, and I'm supposed to be the raid leader. I kind of have to pay attention a little bit more. It's more of like a safety net, but if you are confident in your playstyle, you can have just 64 in the magic. It's probably more damage. Our Mundus Stone is the Thief. It's probably always going to be the Thief unless they somehow change the shadow to be superior, but Thief is the way we're going. And then now we're going on to our gear. So I know not all of this is obtainable by everyone, so I'll try to list some replacements as well. Our first 5-piece is going to be the Necropotence set. Now, the reason why we have this is because we actually do have a pet, even though in Morrowind the scamp pet damage got reduced by 20%. But I still do believe it is a good set just because your sustain is a little bit lower than pre-Morrowind, and so having a little bit more magic, around like 7,000 more, is generally good. And overall, after testing, the damage isn't that much different. You'll notice a difference, but I mean, having the sustain is kind of good as well. Our monster set, we have Ilambris, a medium and heavy, so 5-1-1, 5 light, 1 medium, 1 heavy. If I could get divines on the arm cops, I would definitely do that, but unfortunately my luck has not been there. So ideally you want magic and fully divines, but if you have infused, that's also good as well. Ilambris is generally a question that a lot of people have been asking. Ilambris versus Grothar. I technically do have both of them, but depending on the situation, I kind of switch it out. If you're doing close quarters fight, then I think Grothar slightly outperforms it in damage, but Ilambris is generally a more accurate one to use in long-range fights. So I just use Ilambris overall a little bit more, but I do have both, actually. So now that we have that, our jewelry and weapon is going to be a 4-piece Moondancer. You don't have to have this gold, but I mean, if min-maxing is min-maxing, and if you want the absolute best, then you can get that. So we have 3 Moondancer jewelry, all spell damage, and 1 sharpened weapon. Now, the way you get Moondancer is from Maw of Lorcage. You can do it on normal as well, and I think normal is puggable at this time, like a year or 2 later. So getting Moondancer shouldn't be difficult. Just getting it and sharpened is probably the difficult one. I still don't have a Inferno sharpened staff, even after like hundreds of Maw runs, and all I have is a lightning staff, but that's okay. Lightning staff, I do believe, is now best in slot for Morrowind, just because that's what we're going to be doing mostly, and I'll talk about that a little bit later in the skills. So having a lightning on your main bar is okay. And now we have a Maelstrom Inferno sharpened staff on the back bar. If you don't have Maelstrom or never completed it, you could just get another Moondancer piece. And if you don't have Moondancer either, you could probably get away with like a Necropotence staff on the side and just run like 3 of them. 3 Moondancer, and like, I don't know, switch it out to make 5 Necropotence. You can have that in weapons as well. So, or like 4, and then take out the gloves. You'll just have an extra slot for whatever, I guess. It's kind of weird, but I don't know. You could probably switch out the weapons for something else to make a 5-piece, but ideally you would want Moondancer. If you don't have another one, then put another one on the back bar. But ideally, if you can, Inferno staff sharpened is still best in slot, so that's something you're gonna have to go for eventually. And yeah, so replacements, if you don't have Necropotence or you just don't want to use a pet build, Burning Spellweave is still another good set to use. Another 5-piece, just replace all the body parts that I used right here and get 5 of them. You get it in City of Ash 1 or 2. This is actually a very good set for non-Sorcs and actually for Sorcs as well, but ideally, if you're using a pet, you want to use Necropotence. It slightly outperforms Burning Spellweave, but yeah, if you don't have it, get Burning Spellweave. That is also a very solid option. And then Grothar is Vaults of Madness. So yeah. And then another one, if you don't have Moondancer, second, I guess, best ability or second set you can get is the Aether set, the Infallible Aether. I don't know if I have it. Yeah, I do have a jewelry ring just to show you. You essentially get the same 3-piece effect, except the 2-piece is you get crit instead of magic, and magic is kind of important right now due to the sustain. And yeah, so you can run Aether if you want. Moondancer is also good. The difference is really, do you want spell crit or magic? And I personally chose magic because of our pet. So that's pretty much our gear. And yeah, now it's time to go on to the skills. 1 is our main bar, 2 is our back bar, so Inferno and then Lightning. So let's go over our back bar first, because the front one is going to be, or the front one has the most changes, and I'll try to do my best to explain that one. So first of all, on 1 we have our Liquid Lightning. It's a pretty strong AoE. You're gonna want to use it, and yeah, you're gonna always have this one. Blockade of Fire is still one of the strongest dots that pretty much every magic character is going to use. It is under the Destruction Staff, the Wall of Elements, or Elemental Blockade. Nowadays, I don't think it actually matters whether you have it on Lightning or Fire, but since my racial is a Dark Elf, I get extra damage from Fire. That's why I have it that way. But if you don't, and you're like a High Elf or something Breton, and you have extra magic, I don't think it actually matters which way you have it. But yeah, and a lot of healers run the Lightning one anyway to off balance. So what you do is up to you for this one, as long as you have the ability. Lightning or Fire, doesn't matter. Now we have our pet, because pet build, and we're gonna have to have this on both bars. And then next is Daedric Prey. Now I'm actually still testing this one right now in terms of Daedric Prey versus Haunting Curse. Pre-Morrowind, Daedric Prey used to be best in slot. Now I'm still kind of testing min-max damage. Ideally, either morph is fine if you're just going for playstyle. But if you want to really get the maximum, I'm still doing a little bit of testing, but I still think Daedric Prey outperforms it a little bit. So, yeah. Now we have Bound Aegis. Now, the reason why we use this one is because we took off 2 abilities on our main bar, which we'll get over, or we'll talk about a little bit later. So, Bound Aegis, you just get more resistances, and your max magic is increased by 8%. And then our ultimate, on our back bar, since we have an Inferno, is, of course, the Fiery Rage. That still does a lot of damage, and you should have it. So let's go on to our main bar now. It looks a little bit different because we took out some abilities. Now, you may be wondering, where is Force Pulse, or where is Crystal Frags? I found that after this expansion, Force Pulse and Crystal Frags has been draining my Magicka so quickly that we don't even use it anymore. So we replaced it with a Bound Aegis on both bars, because we have to have it, otherwise we have to recast. And Inner Light to just give you the spell crit rating and more magic. I don't think these actually stack, I'm not sure. And then, of course, we have to have the pet on both bars, otherwise they'll despawn. And so now, instead of Hardened Ward on our back bar, we now have it on our main bar. Did I just say bore? I meant bar. People have been saying both morphs of this are good. I'm sticking with Hardened Ward just because I still like it, and that's what I have it. And then now we have the Mage's Wrath. That's our execute. It is right here. So if you don't want to use Hardened Ward, some people use Power Surge as well. This is more of your change spot to like play around with whatever you want. I just kind of like having the safety ward, but if you're playing with a group with a good healer, then you can like take us out for a surge or whatever, lightning form, streak, whatever. And then our ultimate is the shooting star, which is the meteor under the mages guild. And the reason why we have that is more for I use the meteor on bosses only, and then we use the fiery rage on trash mobs. So if I'm in a boss fight, I'll probably start opening with the fiery rage, and then after that, every, like, I don't know, however long it takes me to get another one, I just drop meteors for the rest of the boss fight. So that's how it works. I'll show you my rotation a little bit later, but let's get on to the champion points, because I do believe this one is a little bit important just because a lot of it has changed. And keep in mind, before I show you anything, this is what works for me. It may not work for you. So if you found something that you're happy with, just stay with whatever you're using. Let's go over the red tree because I think this one has some changes. Now, before I used to use like 85 and 86 or something into Hardy Elemental Defender. Now, after the expansion, it changed and it doesn't scale as high as it used to. So I believe that having 50 and 50 is good enough. I have 10 points into quick recovery because I just like getting healed and not dying. And then we have 30 into thick-skinned. Now, thick-skinned is good for damage over time abilities that are on you. So you kind of just die less, so it helps. And if you don't want the 10 points into quick recovery, you can have 40 into thick-skinned as well, but I kind of just like having field position because mostly I do a lot of dungeons and trials, and it's inevitable that people are going to be dying. So if you're gonna be the guy who's rezzing, you might as well just not die in the process. Now this is a big one. This is Ironclad. This is a new ability or a new passive champion point that's been in the game. It's very important. It reduces your damage taken by against direct damage abilities. So like if you're getting focused with like, I don't know, a beam or something. This works both in PvE and PvP, and it is very strong. It like mitigates a lot of damage that things will do. So this is one of your stronger skills. You don't actually need 75 into the passive tree because in PvE, enemies don't crit. So only in PvP you might want to have 75, but if you're only doing dungeons and trials and whatever, then you probably don't need it. So let's go into our green tree next. We have 20 into Warlord. It reduces the cost of break free. And then 30 into Tumbling, because I kind of roll dodge a lot more than I should. But if you want to put like 50 into Tumbling or Warlord, that is also fine. But I kind of like having it spread out a little bit just because I do both. Now, I have 90 into Arcanist because usually this would be really good since they took out the other ability that just gives you like magic something, reduced spell cost. That is now gone. So this one is still there and it's still pretty good. But we have Tenacity, which I believe pretty much every class, whatever you do, like whatever role, healer, DPS tank is going to have it, because sustain is a very important thing in this game. And that if you don't know what that means, it's essentially like how many rotations can you do without running out of your resources. So having Magicka and Stamina for fully charged heavy attacks is going to play a big role into our build right here. So that's why we have 70 into that one. So pretty much if you learned anything from this one, in the red tree, Ironclad is very important. And what was it? Tenacity is pretty good. So let's go into the blue tree now. This one is still very experimental, but I think it works for me, and I've done some of the high-end raids with it. So Thaumaturge 75 to get the Exploiter passive. It's still pretty good. If you're doing like non-group content, you could take out like 50 points and put it into something else. But I do a lot of group content, and a lot of people run lightning staves, so you get to do extra damage from that. And now I have 25 points into Staff Expert, mostly to like get the passive, or right here, and you deal additional damage when you light and heavy attack with your Destro staff. So that's like more base damage. And then right here, how you build this tree is really up to you. If you just want to put like 100 into Elemental Expert, that's probably okay, but hopefully this build, the way I set it up, is more for like crits and stuff, so you get higher crits but lower base, and then Spell Erosion is just like overall increased flat damage. So this has been very experimental. I might change it around, but this is what I use, and honestly it works. I could do the highest raids with it. And yeah, so let's see, what else have I not covered? I covered all my abilities. What I chose was a Dark Elf, but I think you could choose High Elf, Breton, Dark Elf, and all of those would be fine. Let's see, did I miss anything? I covered the gear. Items. I guess we'll go over potions and whatnot. Mostly it's still the same. If you're doing raids and stuff, spell power potions are the way to go. I'll actually go to the crafting station. I think I have enough. This is actually my house, by the way. I did a house tour of it, so it's pretty neat if you want to watch that. So if you're under alchemy, I do believe that the things that you need to make it are water hyacinth, lady smock, and cornflower. I don't think I actually have any cornflower on me right now. I just like binged a lot of spell power potions and made like a couple hundred of them. So that's essentially what you're going to be wanting to use. As for food, just blue food is fine. Max magic, max health. And yeah, that's pretty much it, I think. So I've been testing a new
How can I help you?
set, and this is one thing I got from the raid that I did yesterday in the Halls of Fabrication. We got the Master's Architect Inferno staff. I got really lucky to get a sharpened one. So I think this might be interesting to play around with, but it does require you to do the new trial. So that's one thing. The 5-piece effect is when you use an ultimate, you and 2 closest allies gain Major Slayer for 10 seconds, increases your damage done to dungeon trial monsters by 15%. So it's strong, but I'm not sure how it'll be yet. But I do have the main weapon and sharpen, so that's always good. Getting the pieces is not that difficult, especially with 12 other people. Let's see, what do I have? Masters. I do not have any body pieces of that, apparently. But we got the weapon. I think I covered everything else. So with that said, if you have any questions or anything, let me know. Covered all the gear, replacements. If you want some crafting, oh yeah. So if you want some crafting stuff instead and you can't farm any dungeons, Twiceborn Star is a good one. Julianos. Kagrenak is probably the last hope you want for this one, but you can use that. If you don't have Moondancer and you only want to use 3 pieces, Willpower is also very good for jewelry, and then what that means, you'd have to use just 2 random staves that don't like connect with anything. But if you are a beginner, that's probably something you can acquire easily. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I went over my skills. Oh yeah, one thing before we leave, I want to show you the rotation. We actually do have the robust Centurion dummy, which is essentially a vet trial boss. The rotation is pretty much going to be like ultimate or a pot, and then ultimate, liquid lightning, blockade, pet, pulse, Daedric prey, 2 heavy attacks, and then rotate or repeat it. So essentially, I'm not going to use a spell power potion just for this. I'm just going to use it to show you what it's going to be like. So essentially, we start off with the potion. I'm going to show you this slowly so you guys can see this. Then we drop our ult, and then we liquid lightning, and then light attack. Try to light weave in between every time. And then after you have our 4 buffs up, you want to heavy attack twice, and then by that time, you should start your rotation over, and then heavy attack 1, heavy attack 2, and by that time all your abilities just start over, and then you just start over your rotation again, and then heavy attack twice. So this is why we have a shield on our main bar. Kind of use it just for emergencies, but then I kind of made the rotation a little bit easier at this point, because we don't have to spam Force Pulse or Crystal Frags anymore. But for the most part, just to recap, Potion, Ultimate, and then slowly Liquid Lightning, Light Attack, Blockade, Light Attack, Pet Pulse, Light Attack, Curse, Light Attack, Swap, and 2 heavy attacks. If you do it quick enough, you should be able to do it within the timer limit. So like that, and then just 2 heavies, and then that's when your first one runs out and you start your rotation again. So that's pretty much it. That's how it would work. And yeah, so hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know how this works for you, actually, because I can clear some of the higher end raids with it. And if you want to try it, definitely let me know how it works for you. Before I go, I just want to say that, once again, 17,000 health is the very minimum you should have for doing trials and dungeons. If you have any lower, you might get like wrecked a lot, but if anything above that, you're pretty much in the safe zone. So that said, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys later. Have a fantastic day.